Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Jordan from PictureMonk.com, and welcome to episode 11 of the PictureMonk Podcast. We're nearing the end of January, and that only means one thing: 1 month closer to spring. And the reason I say that is I cannot wait for spring to get here to take some more photos without bare trees and stuff like that. So get your plans ready for some spring photos. So let's go ahead and get into some news articles that I found. There's only two that I found that kind of really wanted to touch on, and I know I'm late on one of these. The first one has to do with NASA releasing the largest image ever taken. That was taken by the Hubble telescope, and that was taken on January 5th. Now, I released my podcast last week, and as soon as I released it, I think it was either that day or the next day, where I got on to Facebook, and I saw one of those trending topics, and it was the largest photo ever taken. So I was kind of kicking myself that I couldn't put that in last week's podcast. But if you haven't heard about it, NASA released a photo of the Andromeda Galaxy, which is our closest galaxy to our Milky Way galaxy, and it was the largest photo ever taken. It was comprised of 411 images from the Hubble telescope that had 100 million stars in it, and it spanned more than 400 light years in that section anyway. Or 40,000 light years. So that's pretty good. And it was taken with the Hubble telescope, like I said, and it was a 1.5 billion with a B billion pixel image. That's just nuts to me because our little DSLRs have nothing on that image. Even if you do a really, really big panorama, you're not going to get anywhere close to that. So there's actually a video that they put together of the image because it's such a large image that the video kind of just like spans and zooms in, and you can see all these stars, and it's just a crazy, crazy looking video. And I'll link to that at PictureMonk.com/PMP011, and you can check out that video over there. It's a really, really awesome video. I wish I could download the whole image, but I kind of don't want to give up 4.3 gigabytes of space on my computer just for that one image, so I'll stick to looking at it on the video. Check that out. It's a really cool image, and you'll probably get a kick out of that. The next news article has to deal with actually Sports Illustrated. Everybody's heard of Sports Illustrated. Even if you don't like sports, you've heard of Sports Illustrated magazine. They actually just recently laid off their entire photography department. I read the news article, and first of all, I read the headline, and I was like, how do you do that? The Sports Illustrated magazine is all images, pretty much. I mean, there's a few articles in there, but you always see those really awesome action shots on the front of the Sports Illustrated magazine. But they just laid off their entire photography department, and they didn't really give a huge reason why. They just said they're kind of doing some restructuring, and it looks like from one of the commenters that I read. Like I said, they didn't give a good reason why they wanted to get rid of them. Not everybody was doing their job, that kind of thing. But their statement was, our commitment to photography hasn't changed. We're going to cover the games. We're going to shoot portraits. We're going to cover the Olympics. We'll be at the Final Four. We will be at the championships. We'll be there. So, kind of wondering how you're going to be there unless you have your own photography department. Sure, they'll probably just farm it out to freelance photographers, which is good for them. But it's kind of like they got rid of the pros that are on their staff just to hire some people and pay them less money. And that's great and all. That's good for freelance photographers. However, that kind of puts down the photography business in general because news agencies and news channels don't have their photography department, and if they do, they usually do video with photography, and it's very few and far between. So it kind of poo-poos on that a little bit. It's one of those things where it's like the creative arts is just going downhill. That's what it seems like when people are laying off that kind of that kind of staff. So they'll probably just farm it out and pay them less money, and that's probably what they were going for, but hopefully their photos don't suffer for that reason. So go ahead and check that out. I'll have a link to that full article you can read, and just let me know your thoughts in the comments if you how you feel about that. All right, so as I usually record these podcasts on Saturday nights, that's usually when I have enough time to sit down, get a topic together. I wanted to tell you guys, give you guys a little background of what happened during the day today, and it was basically just a photography trip. Me and my dad, we usually go out and take photos together. We both love photography, and we were going to a place here in North Carolina called Hanging Rock State Park, and it's a really nice park. They have campgrounds. They have a whole lot of hiking trails. They have a man-made lake that's at the top where you can go and, it's like a fake beach, that kind of thing, and you can swim in the lake in the summer and that kind of thing. Well, we were wanting to do a camping trip, and we've always talked about camping up there, but we never did. So this year we're finally pulling the trigger and going to camp. So we're going to hike around. It's only going to be a one-day camping trip, but we're going to hike around the day and go up the mountain, go to the observation tower that's at the very top of the mountain, and take photos and just hang out and camp. So that's really what we went up there for, just to look at the sights. But we were driving around. I guess it's right outside the state park. And there was a general store that we stopped at. We went in there. I originally went in there to ask about another general store because a very long time ago, we went to a general store that served fried bologna sandwiches. So if you're not from the South, you probably have no clue what that is. But we had a really good fried bologna sandwich at this general store way back when. And we never can find it after that. We didn't put it on a map anywhere. We don't know the address. We don't know anything. So we went in that general store to see if she or he, we didn't know who it was. We went in that general store to see if they could give us directions to that general store that we're looking for. We ended up finding where it was after, 3 years of looking. They knew where it was. And so we were like, gung ho, let's go to drive an hour and a half away, or a little over an hour, I guess, to go to that general store just for a fried bologna sandwich. Well, it turns out that lady that owns that general store, the general store's name is actually Pretty's General Store, and it's located in Danbury, North Carolina. That general store makes fried bologna sandwiches as well. So we got a little bit down the road, we turned right around, went back to that store, and we had the lady make us a fried bologna sandwich, and it was probably better than the one we had before. And so we got to talking to the lady, and she was she's the manager of the general store, and she was telling us a little bit of history about it, about how her great grandfather and her mother and all the people owned it for the longest time. And it's just got really good history to it. And we didn't plan on staying there, but we stayed there probably for about an hour, roughly about an hour, talking to the lady and taking photos and getting some history behind it. And that's just what's really cool because, we started out just going to look for a campsite, and we ended up kind of making a contact, and if you want to think of it that way, to get history and possibly go back and take photos and kind of get access to certain things. And it was kind of cool to hear that story. So I haven't edited all the photos yet, but by the time this podcast comes out, I'll have photos on the podcast show notes, so you can check out that. And I also have information about the Pretty's General Store as well. So if you're from North Carolina, which I know I have a few listeners that are from North Carolina, if you're from North Carolina, head up to Pretty's General Store. I'll give out the address on the show notes, and you can also go to prettysgeneralstore.com. That's PRIDDYS generalstore.com, and you can check out some of the things they have there. They sell a bunch of stuff, and the lady there, Jane, she's really, really nice and really accommodating. We were bugging her, like I said, for about an hour, and she had no problem with that. So she probably won't listen to this podcast, but I appreciate we both appreciate the access to the store and getting to play around with it. All right, so the main topic for this podcast is I basically want to run through 10 things, 10 mistakes, and the mistakes is in quotes, that photographers make and how to correct them. Some of these are really, really easy, small things, and they're not really mistakes. It's just stuff that you can, if you're having a problem with this, there's a small little workaround for it. So the first one is, this almost happened to me today. I almost left without a memory card in my camera when I went to take photos. Sometimes I just pop the camera on to see how much battery it has left. I don't pay attention to anything else. And so I went out without a memory card. Thankfully, I had more memory cards. I have about 7 that I have with me. But there's actually a setting that will allow you, it kind of gives you an extra reminder that you need a memory card in your camera. And on Canon, it's called the release shutter without card option. I don't know. I'm sure Nikon has this option, but I've only had Canon, so I can only speak to that. So if you open your camera up and go to the menu, just turn on your camera, go to the main menu. At least on Canon, there's the first tab that comes up. It's kind of along the menu items of the image quality, the beep when you halfway click the shutter button down. There's an option down there that says release shutter without card, and if you turn that off, then when you go to take a picture without a card in there, your shutter, your mirror, won't even come down and flap or anything. It'll just stick up there. So if you hold the button down, you're just going to get nothing. You're still going to show the message of no card in camera, but that's just kind of an extra reassurance to remind you that you need a card in your camera. All right, the second thing is changing the copyright information in your camera. Now, a lot of people don't do this, and it's kind of a thing to, if you ever put your photos online and people look up the metadata for your photos. For example, Flickr will show you the metadata of your camera settings, what the photo was taken at. Some even show the GPS location, that sort of thing. There's a copyright section in there where you can add your name, your website, your all rights reserved, that kind of thing. And it's just basically just typing it in your camera, so that way when you take a picture, that metadata for the copyright is always going with your raw photo or your JPEG. So again, if you go in the menu, there's going to be a menu option in there that says, let me just pull it up here in my camera. Let's see, it's just a menu option that says copyright information. And you can enter the author's name, you can enter the copyright details, and that sort of thing. So if you go into that option, you can see you can actually display your name. And right now mine is set to the author as being me, and then the copyright is just saying all rights reserved. So that means, it's just one of those extra little things to say that I own the photo, I took it, that sort of thing. So if you haven't changed that in your camera, if you've had a new camera recently, or if you have your camera for a while and haven't put that in there, go ahead and put that in there. It's just another small thing. You don't have to put it in there once, so you don't really have to worry about it after you do that. All right, the third thing is formatting your cards. Just do that every once in a while. Formatting your cards does wonders for your cards, really. It will, if you ever had an occasion where you went to take a photo and maybe the card's not reading, or you took a bunch of pictures that day, came home and your card was, your card reader maybe wasn't reading it or something like that. It's probably due to your card just not being formatted in a while. And even if you delete stuff off your card after you import it in, you still need to format it. You need to do a low-level format every once in a while on the camera that you always use, especially if you have multiple cameras, maybe you have a backup body. If they're different bodies, take the card, and if you're going to use if you've been using in camera A and you're going to use it on camera B this time, go ahead and format it in the camera that you're getting ready to use. I don't know the exact details because I'm not a big memory card buff, but if you do that in the camera that you're getting ready to use, it just basically wipes it completely clean, and does it in camera, so that way it doesn't know that, hey, I just used it in a T5i and I'm getting ready to pop it in a 6D or 7D or something like that. So that's just another small little thing. You don't have to do it all the time, just every once in a while, and your memory cards will probably read a lot better. The fourth thing that you can do that a lot of photographers don't really do that often is cleaning your sensor and your lens. Cleaning your lenses are really easy. You just need a good wipe and some Q-tips, and you can just get like a tiny bit of water, maybe a little bit of alcohol, and clean the front of your lens with the wipe, and also take the dry part of the Q-tip and use that to clean the contacts of your lens and your camera body. So where you pop the lens on your camera, there's a little metal contacts, and if you just brush those off, maybe even use an air rocket. If you're not sure what an air rocket is, it's just a little squeezer that shoots out air. Do that and just blow off the mini dust that there might have. You take the Q-tip and wipe it clean, just to make sure you have a clean contact for when you pop your camera on. Cleaning the lens, or cleaning the camera sensor, is a little bit of a different story. They sell kits that come with small brushes and solution to clean your camera sensor by yourself, but the solution is really cheap. The formula that they give you is really cheap. It's probably $6-7, but the brushes, that's what's more expensive, and you have to get the right brush for the right sensor. So if you have a crop sensor camera, then you're gonna have to get a smaller brush. If you have a full frame, it's going to require a bigger brush. So you have to get the right brush for your sensor. Now, I just sent my camera in for repair, as you probably already know. So they already cleaned my sensor for me, but I will probably have to invest in some of those brushes for my full frame camera. And you kind of have to do that at your own risk. I've done it to my old camera before, and I've never had a problem. But you can even just take again an air rocket and blow up in there just to make sure you get some of the loose dust off. If you're starting to see dark spots in your photo, like if a good way to test this is just to point your camera up at the sky, a nice bright blue sky, and take a picture, just one sample photo, and and if you have a dirty sensor, you're probably going to see small black dots, and that just means that your sensor is needing to be cleaned. There might be some stuff on the lens, but if you give that a good wipe down and you still get those spots, your sensor is probably dirty. You need to take care of that. All right, the next thing is kind of simple, but it's getting your photos level. There's a couple ways that you can do this, because if I have a problem with this on my wide angle lens, especially keeping my photos level. I might look in the camera and think everything's spot on, but when I get back, I know that I was off by 10 degrees or so, and my photos are extremely wonky. So you can actually buy a bubble level for your top of your camera, which I have. It's a small little bubble level where you put it on your hot shoe, and it really works well if you're on a tripod, and so you can get the bubble right in the center, just like every other bubble level out there. Some cameras have a built-in level. My 6D does, and so you can use that. If you don't get it level right in camera, not a big deal. You can always fix it in post, but it's better to make sure that you get it right in camera the first time. All right, the sixth thing is using the stock camera strap. Now, I've had the stock camera strap on my camera for a very long time, but I recently bought what is, I guess, would be considered a Black Rapid knockoff. The Black Rapids were just too expensive for a camera strap. I know it's probably going to be better quality, better build, but it's not too strenuous for me. I'm not hanging by my camera for anything, so I don't need a really strong strap. I just need something that's comfortable, and I do prefer the sling straps that go across your body and the camera hangs to your side. So I just recently put that back on my camera after the longest time of having the stock camera strap, and I really like it. One reason you might not want to use a stock camera strap is, number one, it's really not too comfortable, and number two, you're basically, unless you're like a diehard Sony, Nikon, Canon, Panasonic, I guess. If you're not one of those diehard fans that just love that brand, you're basically just giving free advertisements to people when you're walking around with your camera. Not to mention, for the higher end cameras, if someone wants to steal your camera for example, they'll know the models of the camera, and they know that maybe a 5D Mark III is $3,500. If they see that on your strap, they're going to be more likely to go for that than any other camera on a regular or an off-brand strap. So you're basically just saying, hey, I have this really expensive camera, that kind of thing, and you want to kind of steer away from that. So even if you get a simple black strap that's just, even if it's a neck strap, grab one of those. They're really cheap on Amazon, and if you want to go the other route, get a Black Rapid or a sling strap that will go across your body, and you'll probably like that better than a regular neck strap. All right, number 7 has to deal with when you're taking the photos, and that has to do with not paying attention to the histogram on your camera. I don't pay attention to the histogram all the time. Most of the time, if we're out just taking photos, if I'm out with my dad and we're just taking photos and stuff, I don't pull up the histogram whatsoever. But if I'm doing like real estate shoots, or if I'm out taking pictures of apartment complexes and stuff like that, I really want to make sure that I get as much detail as I can right off camera. So I'll take like a couple test shots and maybe pull up the histogram, see where my darks are at, or my blacks, my whites, and try to get a perfect mid-tone exposure as much as I can. And then that way I know when I get back into Lightroom or Photoshop, I know exactly what I need to do to get a really good exposure. And if you just can't get it right, if you know the histogram is off, then you might want to think about high dynamic range or HDR photography. But most of the time, if you pay attention to the histogram, you'll probably be able to get it right in camera. So if you want to check out how to read the histogram, if you're having problems with that, head on over to PictureMonk.com/histogram, and I have a short little tutorial that gives you examples of a dark exposure histogram or a light exposure or perfect, that kind of thing. So head on over there if you want to know how to read that. All right, the next one is organizing your photos. A lot of people have problems with this, and I'm trying to get into a better organizational structure here, to where all my photos are going in Lightroom, even if I have to import them, and I know they're just going to be test shots or something. Every one of them is going in Lightroom. So I used to just keep them in a folder just on my external hard drive, and label them really crappy and that kind of thing. So now I'm getting to the better habit of popping them into to Lightroom, and it's actually worked out really great, because as I'm building a preset volume to sell, I know that I can pull these images and I don't have to go hunting for these sample images that I want to display presets on. So it's a simple thing, but organizing your photos, make sure you have a good organizational structure and a good workflow for those. All right, the 9th thing is changing your white balance. A lot of people don't pay attention to white balance, but it can really affect your photo, especially if you take indoor shots of the family or something like that. If you're really into getting really good shots, if you're just doing for snapshots, then you're not really going to care much about changing the white balance. But if you're taking like indoor shots, for example, then your photos are going to be extremely warm. They're going to be really, really warm and really yellow. And to get a really natural photo, you're going to want to change the white balance to a more cool, maybe a tungsten or a fluorescent white balance type. Even if you just do that in camera, that's better than nothing. But, if you're taking photos and you want to really play with them and get a really good photo, a professional looking photo, changing the white balance will really help with that. And I'm actually going to have a video coming out this week that deals with white balance. So be sure to check out the PictureMonk YouTube channel, and you'll see that video on there, and subscribe if you haven't already. All right, and the last thing is to sharpen your photos. You've probably heard me say this a bunch in previous videos and stuff like that, but sharpening your photos is crucial to getting really good shots. If you shoot in RAW, which you should, my opinion, if you shoot in RAW, you're basically just getting raw data off the camera. You probably already know that. You're probably, your photos are going to be extremely flat. No details to them at all. But it's funny how we'll import the photo into Lightroom or Photoshop and play around with the shadows and the highlights and that sort of thing. But we never touch the sharpening. But the sharpening is probably one of the most important things, just because when you get a raw photo off your camera, it has nothing done to it. So when you see the photo on the back of the camera, you're seeing a JPEG preview of what the photo is going to look like. So it might look sharp on the back of the camera. But when you import it into Lightroom or Photoshop, it's got nothing done to it. So it's not going to look exactly like it did on the camera, because it's the JPEG preview has stuff applied to it. But the raw photo, you need the raw photo because you need more detail. So you need to make sure that you sharpen the image. I'm going to have a sharpening preset in my presets that I'm going to be coming up with, but you can actually do it by yourself now. I have a specific value for my presets or for my photos that I do. And if your photos are set at 300 DPI, which I recommend they be, then the amount of sharpening is 100 and the radius is 1.5. If you listen to my last podcast, you probably heard that already. But I really want people to know that if you sharpen the photo, you're going to be more pleased with how your photos come out. So, again, it depends on the subject. You know, if you are taking portraits, you might not want to sharpen too much, and if you do, you might want to increase the threshold so that you're only sharpening edges. But just play around with it. Maybe you find another value that works for you. But I really recommend you sharpen your photos. Even if you don't use my values, sharpen them a little bit. And I'm sure you'll be really happy with the results, and you'll notice the change. All right, guys, thanks for joining me on the 11th episode of the podcast. I really appreciate you guys coming back, and I really appreciate you guys subscribing to the podcast, rating the podcast, just everything in general, just for visiting PictureMonk.com. I appreciate that, and I really do hope that we can make a community here. I don't want it just to be me spouting stuff all the time. I want it to be a community to where we can all get together and share photos and share experiences and that sort of thing. So head on over to PictureMonk.com/PMP011 for all the stuff discussed in this episode. And that's about it, guys. I appreciate you guys coming back, and I will see you in the next podcast.